Today, we're taking a pleasure cruise to a destination that's full of mystery and talked about in hushed tones, the elusive G spot.
That's right. We're going there. We are going to debunk some myths, explore the science behind the G spot, and hopefully by the end of this episode, everyone listening will be experts in finding this glorious region.
Is it a myth? Is it magic? Or is it just good anatomy? Stick around to find out.
Welcome to Not Safe for Brunch. In this podcast, we're here to bring sex, insight, and real world education to the table unapologetically. Think about it as having those important, unfiltered brunch conversations with your closest friends about sex, relationships, and everything in between. With over 55 years of experience combined in the intimacy industry, helping individuals and couples focus on breaking down barriers, reducing shame, and empowering people to embrace their desires and relationships with confidence. Hi, I'm Coralie. I live in the Vancouver area. I'm a married mom of two, half empty nesting, one in, one out. And my secret power is I love a good rabbit hole. I love digging deep and finding the truth or the root cause of a situation.
And I'm Amber. I live in Ontario. I'm married. I'm a mom and a GMA. And an unapologetic quality of mine is I weed through the fluff and I get to the point.
I love it. I am Vicki. I'm in Manitoba. I'm divorced and I'm re-entering the relationship space. I am a mom to two grown-ups, and my magic is making meaningful connections and relationshiping, which of course creates trust.
Okay, let's just be real. Has everyone here had a G-spot orgasm, or are we all going to be the three bears again?
Can we just preface that if our families are listening, this is the time to just check out.
Yeah, unless you're my dad, because he said everyone's human, sweetie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, Coralie's dad is watching every episode. He's taking notes. I'm impressed. That's all I want to say.
He's the best.
He's like,
so supportive.
love it.
All right, yes, 100% have had a G-spot orgasm.
Same for me. It's a consistent thing here.
Yeah, you just got to know. You got to know the position. So you just learn it, and then as long as you tell your partner it, you're good to go.
I'm over here going, there was that one time. I had it one time. Yeah, like there's one time. Yeah. I need more practice, apparently.
Okay, my next question is, when you had your first G-spot orgasm, or your only one potentially, Vicki, how old were you? And were you solo or with a partner?
You're asking me? God, I feel like I should not be the one asked. Yeah, I was with a partner. There was a lot of edging involved, and I apparently need more of that.
Always with a partner, never on my own.
So my first time was solo, and it can happen solo or with a partner. And I've been with my husband for 30 years, so I was with him when I had the solo experiment. And then I was like, look what I can do. Showed him.
It's a party trick. Party for two.
Totally. And then it, just got easier, and like it wasn't all the time, but now it's every time. So, yeah.
I'm feeling FOMO. Okay, we really need to. I can't wait to get to the end.
Yeah. Okay. So one more thing is, why do we think there's so much mystery and desire to achieve it?
Well, I think that porn.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Right? I think that pornography has really sort of laid the bricks for what we should be experiencing. And of course, we all know I don't subscribe to the norms of anything. So I don't stress out about that. I don't worry about any of that. But yeah, I do think that a lot of people will compare and despair a little bit, or like, how does that happen? And I think there's some magic tricks that happen on porn that maybe we're not utilizing in our bedrooms. And
they're keeping water bottles inside.
Right? Yeah. All of a sudden it's like sploosh. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
Okay, wait, though. It's not always a G-spot orgasm is not always a gush.
Right. Yeah.
So you can't expect that to be,
right.
Oh my gosh, I'm having a G-spot orgasm all the time and expect that, because it's not.
Right.
And I mean, for me personally, it's not. But I think the G spot has been put on such a pedestal, and it's like you have to have it and it's the best and you always have to have a G spot orgasm, and not everybody can necessarily achieve it. I don't think. I mean, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more as we dive into the research, but I just think it's been put on such a pedestal that, when you go to a movie and you're like, it's been, yeah, I can't wait to see this movie. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. And it's so fucking disappointing.
I hate it when all the good shit's in the trailer. Like, why?
Right? And I feel like we put the G spot on a pedestal like that.
I totally agree. I always, when I'm talking about it with my clients, I kind of refer to it as like when you would buy, I don't know if they still do this because I don't buy albums anymore. I, stream them. But when you would buy a CD and you would listen to it till the end and then you'd let it play for another 10 minutes, you forgot to turn it off. And then a secret song would come on and everyone would be talking. Did you hear the secret song? Did you hear the secret song? And so everyone wants to hear the secret song. And so that I think that's exactly it. It's part of that pedestal.
Fascinating. Say more.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the research. We're going to go through a lot of stuff here. So take notes, or if you're driving, you're going to want to listen to this again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
So there are a variety of different studies on female sexuality and the G-spot, but there's not nearly enough. So know that the science could always be changing. We read as much as we can. We try and stay informed so that we can share with our clients for our own knowledge. And to share with you guys as well. The information is out there for all of us to disseminate and come to our own conclusions, and your own experiences, they might lead you to different conclusions. So the info shared today is conclusions that have come from hearing thousands of women having conversations over our combined 55 years experience in sexual health and speaking with women about their experiences in the bedroom, personal experience, and reading science-based evidence. And we know that science is always evolving. So if there's any major breakthroughs, we're going to talk about it with you guys first. But before digging into the science, we'd like to acknowledge our science sources for this episode. One is, we're pulling it back out, the Vagina Bible. This is written by OBGYN. It's a New York Times bestseller. And Dr. Jen Gunter is Canadian, born in Winnipeg, and currently lives in California. And the other science resource is Dr. Marcy Bowers. She's an MD, OBGYN based in California, who's the first doctor worldwide to be a transgender woman who specializes in gender affirming surgeries. And she was also the first US surgeon to learn the technique of functional clitoral restoration after female genitalia mutilation, which I think is just fascinating. So, yeah. A couple other notes that we want to add before diving in are, when we say women, we mean all people with vaginas, whether you're assigned female at birth and trans and even non-binary people. If you have a vagina or would like to be in one, this episode will be one you'll want to take notes for, like we said. And also, if you're watching or listening with a partner, this is important for everyone to hear. Partners are wonderful for helping explore our bodies and find new erogenous zones, but more often than not, most people are going to find the G-spot by solo play than with partnered play. When you're solo, there's no pressure. It can take a really long time. It can take forever. And most of us have a little people pleaser inside of us that will start to worry. So it's okay to explore on your own. Solo experiences are going to help lead to reaching the goal faster. And partner, if you're listening, please give them the validation that it's okay, even if you don't think they need the validation. Your partner might not even know she wants your validation until she's received it. Or if she does know, maybe she has a hard time admitting that they would appreciate your validation, not permission, not saying permission. No one needs permission to do anything, but validation. And as women in general, we don't like to ask for things, which is one reason we love these conversations. We want women to become more assertive in asking for what they want.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's sort of the premise of what we do and have done all these years is we are constantly validating women that their feelings are their feelings and that their experiences are their experiences. And I just think as women, oftentimes we don't know, we're not sure. Should we share that? Should we not? Is this something we should know? Like there's so much hidden shame that kind of sits and marinates around all of it. I hate that part. So it's one of the reasons why I just advocate for conversation, right? Get in there, talk the things.
Absolutely.
Solo experiences can help guide you when you're together. Every body is unique. And if a past partner climaxed easily from G spot, it doesn't mean that this partner will. They could need a completely different stimulation, a different spot, or maybe your partner that climaxed easily was, and I'm just going to hold your hand while I say this, faking it. They could have been faking it. And unfortunately, that doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah. So, like Vicki said in our one of our previous episodes, if you are faking it, stop. Train
Yeah.
them before you put them back in the pond.
Yeah, do a sister a favor. That's too funny.
So put on your wetsuit. We're diving in, starting with the current scientific information, sharing some truths, and busting some myths. So only 1/3 of women are able to climax from penetration alone. What?
Yeah, I mean, I still think they're unicorns, but
I think that's a generous number. I think that's a very generous number.
I do too. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like, and I mean, adding clitoral stimulation, in my experience, helps a ton. But if they're hitting the G spot, then yeah, penetration alone, in my experience. Roughly 2/3 of women thinking there's something wrong with them.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because of all of the information that's out there, and we're just being just blasted with so much of it, and some of it doesn't match, and it leaves women wondering, have I had more G-spot orgasms?
So, there's some lore behind the G spot. It was discovered in 1950 by Dr. Grafenberg, and what I found so fascinating to read was that his paper was actually called "The Role of the Urethra in the Female Orgasm." It didn't even mention a spot. It didn't even mention a spot. It was described as an erotic zone close to the urethra slash lower bladder.
Well,
Right.
so there we go.
So basically, from that paper, it means he was likely describing the anatomy of a clitoris, of the vestibular bulbs that we talked about in our clitoral episode, and the root and body as they surround the clitoris. And if you're on YouTube, here we go. Here's another one where you can see
Mhm.
the clitoris. He was likely describing the vestibular bulbs, which are these, the vestibule,
Mhm.
and all this tissue. This is erectile tissue that is surrounding your urethra and lower bladder.
So there are multiple studies that have been done and suggest that there is no special spot. There's no nub. The walnut? No walnut? What?
Yeah.
Just
There's
the
no
clitoris.
walnut.
Just the clitoris, the urethra, on the vaginal wall. No magical special G spot. So that's controversial.
Okay, let's get into this. So
Yes.
there's a spot. It just might not be a definitive spot. Like, it's on the clitoris,
Right.
or it's part of the clitoris. It might not be, separated or a magical button.
Right.
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's part of the clitoral structure. It's kind of like your funny bone. All right? So think of your funny bone. It's not an actual bone, but when you hit it, it sure as heck feels different.
Right.
That's a really good point. Oh, I love that. I love that. And we have always talked about how it is absolutely sort of in that backside of the clitoris. So it's a part of that structure, like you said. And I just think that it does provide a different sensation. And of course, if it is incorporating the urethra and the bladder in any way, that's why we feel some of those things that we've described over time.
I totally agree. It's just the clitoris. But what happens is when the clitoris swells, as we discussed in our clitoris episode, the back side of it is going to swell. So when you're not aroused, you're not going to feel that swelling because your clitoris isn't engorged. So that's what the science that I read in the Vagina Bible and personal experience and client conversations. It's not a magic button, like Amber said. And they didn't, hand out, you get a magic button and you don't.
But when they did these studies, and I know you did a lot of this research, when they did these studies, did they state that the women were aroused? Did they do MRIs and different stuff when the
They
women were
did.
aroused? Okay.
Yes, they did studies, they did MRIs, they did ultrasounds. on people with clitorises who were masturbating and being stimulated by a partner. And all of that, I might have included this further down. And I
Yeah, great.
definitely got it from the Vagina Bible, the Bible everyone needs.
So, ultrasound studies on clitoral swelling done during external masturbation and penetrative sex indicate both cause clitoral engorgement. I just want to see those scans.
Right?
I'm
Well, no,
interested.
Probably online.
but they didn't show a G-spot, correct?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. They
But
didn't
they
G-spot.
likely
They
showed
showed
the clitoris getting engorged, and, I mean,
exactly.
that's what's it's a different feeling, and if you've ever had a G-spot orgasm, it's a totally different feeling than, let's say, clitoral orgasm or just penetration.
So going into the anatomy of the clitoris, which we went into very in-depthly in a previous podcast, with the knowledge we have based on the MRIs and the ultrasound science discussed above, it is not a spot. It's not a separate entity, but it is the backside of the clitoris. So what's important to know going into your journey to finding your G-spot is that it's not in the same spot for everyone because everybody's different. So if you Google, it's going to say 2 inches, but maybe yours is 1 inch. Maybe yours is 3 inches. It all depends on how your body and how your clitoris is positioned. And that's why learning about your body is so important and not just reading from a textbook. Even if it's a Vagina Bible, you got to do the field work.
Right. And it's also the only way that you can share effectively with a partner if you're in a partnered play situation. If they don't know the map,
Right.
they're never going to please.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think a good way that you can kind of start your journey is look at where your clitoris, the external portion, is compared to your vaginal opening, because then you're going to realize how far up or how close to the entrance it might be for you. That's a good place to start. And also, interestingly, this was so interesting. Trans women who've had bottom surgery, they often call theirs the B spot.
Hmm.
So it's in the same location as the G spot, but they take the erectile tissue and apply it internally and along that inner labia lining. So basically under the surface of the penis where the urethra travels, that area is a huge source of pleasure for a lot of men. So they're going to take that and apply it into the same spot where the G spot would be. So it would be the B
Ooh,
spot,
that's fascinating.
That is
right?
cool.
Yeah, I love it. All right, girls. So, should we even be calling this the G spot? What do you think? Like, it leads to the idea that it's a particular spot when, according to science, like we've discussed, it's the swollen clitoris stimulated internally. So, some doctors call it the female orgasm, others vaginal orgasm. In a world where we're working so hard to be more respectful of gender identity, let's throw around some potential new name ideas. What do we want to call this spot now? I don't know, like
I don't
Dr. Grafenberg. You're being challenged, sir.
I mean, I get it. He's the one who discovered it, so he gets to name it.
Everyone
Whatever.
wants their name on something, Amber.
I mean, it's
It's
never
been always
cultures.
called the G spot. Why do we gotta
Yeah.
change it?
Well, I think, I'm of the argument of both sides where I think that's what people are going to Google no matter what for the end of time, but I also think that it leads to misinformation of people thinking it's a magic button. I did come up with some name suggestions. Just going to throw these out here.
Let's hear it.
The internal orgasm, which I like better than the vaginal orgasm because it's more gender inclusive. The G spot, but G stands for gold. You hit the gold because I always talk about it as the G spot Olympics. You hit the gold.
I love it. Gold standard.
The C spot 2.0,
Yeah.
the unicorn, the ozone, or the holy grail.
All right,
All
so
right.
everybody should vote on these. Like,
Yeah.
We're gonna have to put a poll up on our social media. Make sure to follow
if
it.
I had to change it,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the gold spot. I do like, but if I had to change it because that's too close,
Yeah.
the unicorn.
Yeah, the unicorn.
Unicorn. I love medical terminology and I really like the internal orgasm. I think you're right. I think it's inclusive. I think it doesn't matter. I think that it just means that you're being stimulated from the inside when you're having that orgasm. So I really, you know me, I'm always going to be that girl that wants things to be just so. And Eternal orgasm for me, ladies.
We will definitely put a poll in our social media.
I love that.
Get some opinions from our listeners.
Okay, so now that we've got the science down, are you ready to put that knowledge to the test? So we've established that the G spot isn't some mythical unicorn, but rather a very real and accessible source of pleasure. Now, who's ready to go on an adventure? It's time to shift gears and talk about how to actually find this elusive mystery zone and unlock its potential. So get ready to take some notes because we're gonna do it again. We're gonna drop some knowledge.
Ooh la la.
Remember when we talked about the clitoral connection and how the G spot is actually the backside of the urethra area of the vagina and not a specific spot or a magic spot that's going to unlock those orgasms? If you've never had one or don't have them consistently, we can't promise that you're going to have a G spot orgasm or an internal orgasm, as we might want to say. It can take a long time, dedication to figure it out. And it's going to take like some experimenting, but different tools I think that you could try and use even to just help position yourself. And I think we're going to get into that.
You're about to enter the G spot Olympics.
Let's do this.
For many assigned female at birth orgasms, they're a learned skill. Because the clitoris glands can be so sensitive, we have to learn what our bodies like and what we don't like. And when it comes to pressure and stimulation, some women need light touch only, and other women need to be hit with a Mac drug. That's why we have different sensations and pulses on our vibrators, because some of us need dun dun dun, some of us just need like, that's it.
And on that note, join us for part 2 of this G Spot episode next week. Thanks for pulling up a chair at our unapologetic brunch table today. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It's like tipping your server, but for podcasts. And hey, sign up for our weekly newsletter using the link in the show notes so you never miss the juiciest, most unfiltered chats we're serving up. Remember, brunch isn't just about the mimosas, it's about the authentic connection and keeping it unapologetically real. Until next time, let's keep the brunch vibes alive and the conversation flowing.